How do you scale your copywriting business so you can take on more clients without losing your freaking mind or hiring a huge team? I'm going to tell you how I did it in my business and give you some actionable steps you can walk away with that you can implement in your copywriting business today. Back in 2019, I was a mom deeply struggling with anxiety, watching a 1-year-old full-time and trying to grow this business. I didn't know what I wanted it to be, but I really wanted to see where it could go. So I spent most days, Monday through Friday, working out of the lobby of the local YMCA while my daughter was in childcare. She was only allowed to be in there for 2 hours a day, so I would put her in childcare at the Y, then we would come home, I would work during nap time, and that was it. I could really only serve one client without being completely overwhelmed. Any more than that, and I felt like I was drowning. Now, fast forward 2 years, I run a micro agency. I'm able to work full time. I have a full-time writer on my team, a small contract team, and we serve multiple clients at a time, usually managing pretty big launch projects. Now, obviously there's a lot of steps between then and now, and I've already mentioned that team that I have working with me. So this version, the 2021 version, might not be your next step, but I want to tell you everything that I did to take that little business out of the lobby of the YMCA in 2019 and start scaling it so I could grow my revenue and start investing back in my business. When it comes down to it, for me, because of the limited capacity I had as a mom with my mental health and with my schedule, I knew that I needed a team. So I had to grow my revenue, which meant raising my prices and taking on more clients. So the very first thing is not the first thing I did, but it should have been. It is the most important, and that is setting clear boundaries, setting them early, communicating them early, and communicating them often, because that drowning, struggling to take a breath feeling comes when your projects get off track, when that scope is creeping and your clients are texting you or voxering you on the weekends and a project is 6 weeks longer than it was supposed to be and you're on the 5th round of edits, right? And a lot of these things you can't anticipate until you've been there. So I suggest to you, with every single project, just take a quick look back, think about where an additional boundary might have helped that project run smoother or faster or more efficient, and add that into your contract, and then communicate that early and often. Set those boundaries. And so just a couple things that you can start thinking about are, how are you going to communicate? How can you streamline communication and set some really clear time and space boundaries around your communication? Only an email, I'm only going to respond these times a day, right? Things like that. Deadlines, setting deadlines for both yourself and the client, and telling them that when you need things from them, when that time is, when that deadline is in the project, and when you're going to be delivering things to them, so that everybody knows what to expect up front. You can set up expectations for the number of edits. We tell our clients they get 1 round of edits, and we have a couple touch points along the way to make sure that we really only need 1 round of edits. But when you cut out all of those really clear boundaries and then add consequences when those boundaries are broken. If you schedule another meeting, it costs this much. If your project starts to creep, it costs you this much. We can terminate you, right? Like, you put all of those boundaries in there so that your clients know that they're pretty incentivized to keep on track. And then you can really start to block out your calendar so that you can find out where that space is where you can start fitting in more clients. So the first and most important thing is boundaries. Communicating those boundaries in your contract, in all of your paperwork, communicating them early and often. The second thing, I've already alluded to it a little bit, is your project plan and your project calendar. Again, knowing what to expect when, knowing when different parts of the project are happening, and having that entire 30,000 foot view calendar mapped out, you can start to see where the white space is. So when you have a sales call, instead of saying we'll start Monday and then just winging it, you can say, great, we can start you in 3 weeks on this day. And then you know that maybe you're getting close to offboarding one client. So when you bring this client on, yes, there's a little overlap, but it's not on super heavy weeks, and you're not necessarily having to wait until this project is done in another 3 weeks to bring on the next client. So you can start bringing on more clients in a shorter period of time, but knowing exactly what you're doing each week. So with our clients, we send out a project plan with the proposal and then a more detailed one after they've signed the contract. So they know what's happening week to week, and we know what's happening week to week. So they know all of their deadlines, they know what's going on at any given time in the project, and they know that they need to keep their project on track or they get charged. And then we also have all of our client projects in a master calendar. Now, this one doesn't have the specific deadlines and all of the ins and outs. This is just that high level view. This is what's happening at each project at any given week, so that we know when the super heavy weeks are and when the lighter weeks are in projects, so that we can add on a lighter week over a heavier week of another project and not have two heavy weeks butting up against each other, leaving me like eating spaghetti in my office. I don't eat spaghetti, but in my office at 9 o'clock at night, sobbing into my copy. All right, you've got your boundaries, you've got your project plan and your project calendar. The next thing I'm going to recommend is a clear-cut process. Even if you haven't been doing this for a long time, even if it's your very first project, I'm betting you can take a stab at what a project would look like. Sit down before you send a project plan to your client and just think, in a dream world, what would this process look like? What are each steps? What are the milestones and the touch points? What needs to happen first, and then what needs to happen next in order to get to that end goal and that deliverable? Even if you've never done that process before, you can still communicate that process to your client so that you have everything to put on a project plan, right? You actually have to have a process to put it on the project plan. So maybe it means joining a couple copywriting communities, just some free Facebook communities, and asking other people what their process looks like, what the different steps are, or just getting super clear on the objectives and the outcome and then mapping out each step along that way. Then you can put that in a project plan, put that on your calendar, and find the white space. Now, when it comes to a project plan and your process, I recommend always giving yourself 10 to 20% more breathing room than you think you need. No matter what, you think it's going to take 6 weeks, go ahead and make it 8 weeks, right? And if you're doing a project for the very first time, add 50% more time on. Just trust me, just do it. You're not going to regret it. Worst case scenario, well, I guess best case scenario, you finish early and then you've over delivered. And worst case scenario, your project gets behind, but you've already built in the time. So your client isn't disappointed and your calendar isn't getting overbooked. So figure out your process, figure out the different steps of the process, and then get that into the calendar. This does a couple of things. Obviously, it keeps your calendar nice and clean, but even more than that, it communicates to your clients that you know what you're doing, so that the beginning of the project, when you're communicating your process to them, they know they can trust you. They know what's happening. You stay in the driver's seat. And when you stay in the driver's seat, your project stays on track. And when your project stays on track, you can start taking on more work. You've got to keep your hands on that steering wheel. So boundaries, project plan, and calendar, and a process. Okay, project management software. Let's talk about that for a minute. You've got to stay organized. I am not the most organized person in the world. You should see my bedroom. It is just clothes everywhere, right? My house is not super tidy. I'm not the most organized person in the world. My integrator is, but our business has to stay organized. Otherwise, it's going to become a shit show pretty quickly. So we use two main project management tools to keep everything on track and keep all of the moving pieces super clear and concise. So the first one that we use internally, so this is our project management tool, is Trello. It is a free tool. I'll link it below. We use Trello boards for pretty much everything in our business. And that is how we keep our big projects, the really complex ones with a lot of moving pieces. That's how we keep them on track internally. We communicate back and forth. As a team, we can move cards around. Even as a solo entrepreneur, when I didn't have a team, having that project plan laid out, having those tasks and those lists and those cards to move around helped me really understand where we were, where we are, and where we are going. So that is the internal project management tool. I know what you're going to ask. Do my clients get added to that? No, they do not. I do not have clients in my Trello. That is internal only. As a CRM and our client management tool, we use Honeybook. Again, I'll link that down below, but that is a CRM. That's where we go back and forth. We have all of our communication lives in the thread of their Honeybook project, the proposals, the invoices, the contracts, any files that get shared back and forth, onboarding questionnaires, all of that lives in their project in Honeybook. So it's a really clear place to go and find everything, and a clear place to streamline communication. So we use those two project management softwares, and that keeps everything on track. So we don't have to go searching for files and wondering what's next and spending all of this time that we could be spending serving one client well and taking on another client. So project management software, a process, a calendar, a project plan, boundaries. The last thing that I think really frees us up to start serving more people is inquiry workflow. So this is the workflow that I have set up from the second someone meets me for the first time. So from introduction to contract, from the inquiry through the sales call, all of that. This workflow is automated and streamlined, and it does a couple things. One, it keeps the wrong clients out. There are going to be plenty of people who are not the right fit for me, whether it's a values fit, a personality fit, an industry fit, or quite frankly, just a budget fit. There are going to be a lot of people who come on my website or may hear my name and want to work with me that are not the right fit for me. And the same is true for you. And if I hopped on a sales call with every one of those people to find out that they weren't a right fit and to let them know they weren't a right fit, then I have wasted hours of my week. I could probably spend all week just on sales calls. So instead, we have this multi-step, high-touch process that very lovingly and gently weeds out the wrong people. They get to self-select out. I'm not telling them that we're not working with them. I'm not saying you're not the right fit. They are throughout the process, whether it's a matter of me communicating my values and asking them if they share the same, whether it's a matter of me just sharing the investment with them or the amount of work that we provide. They're going to pretty quickly tell either, yes, I want and can afford her services, or no, I can't, right? So they get to opt out. And then I'm only getting on the sales call with the people who are pretty much my ideal clients. By the time we're on the sales call, it's not a sales call. It's pretty much a kickoff call. I can't remember our most recent proposal acceptance rate, but it is high. It's above 80%. So my prices are just high enough that we're not bringing in everyone. But by the time I get on that sales call, I'm talking to the right person, and that keeps our processes clean and simple and streamlined. So I know that a lot of this video sounds like it was about freeing up time. Time management is not my skill. That's not what I'm going to be preaching and teaching on. But I was able to take a small business that honestly, I felt like I was drowning in with a ton of anxiety and depression and a 1-year-old. And I was able to implement these steps one little step at a time to start creating more room and more systems and processes so that I could start serving more clients, generating more revenue, putting it back into the business, and continuing to grow the business, the team, the revenue, and my income. So yes, today, when we're serving 6, 7, 8 clients at a time, maybe those are 4 or 5 when you're working as just a solopreneur or with just a OBM or a VA, right? You can get there, you can grow, and you can add on to your team. But when it's just you and you're just starting out, start with the boundaries, start with a project plan and the project calendar, start with a process, even if you've never done it before. Start with some project management software, either free or super low cost, and start with an automated inquiry workflow. If you can start there, you can start adding more clients to your roster, which means you can start investing back in yourself and your team and getting a little more time back while bumping up that revenue. Okay, if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. I want to make sure this is super clear. I do have a free resource for you. So I'm giving you the Trello board that we use for our client management, right? We're talking about client management. This is how we keep everything super laid out and clean and clear. I sound like a commercial, clean and clear and under control, which is exactly what we do with our client management Trello board. So that will be in the link below. And if you have any other questions, let me know. Make sure to subscribe so that you're catching the video every time they drop each week.